Yeah, I got my whole crew over here bobbing. Everybody's head is bobbing right now. Y'all can't see it, but
All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Adams Brothers Podcast. We are joined here this morning with the Sheriff, Dr. Gregory Tony. And I put some emphasis on doctor because he just got his doctorate degree. Congratulations to you, sir.
Congratulations.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate the support.
You're
it's a lot of
very
work, but it's finally done.
You're very welcome, and some hard work, and that's a great accomplishment. Congratulations to you, sir, and thank you for making time for Black media.
As
Once
always.
again, as always.
Absolutely. Hey, look, and thanks for your patience. I know we've been trying to do this for a while, a lot of resets, reschedulings, but, you know, Broward County never sleep, guys. You know that.
Oh, yes.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Yes, indeed.
So we know you have other interviews right behind us.
We're pressed for time.
Jump right on into. Let's talk about some of the gun violence here in Broward County, particularly in Deerfield Beach and Pompano Beach. We know we just had a murder here, an unfortunate murder here in Deerfield Beach last week, and it hasn't been too many shootings. Thank God for that. But Pompano has been very busy. We know you made some arrests. So briefly, just let's talk about the arrests that you made and what you've been doing in Pompano Beach and up here in Deerfield.
And the Fort Lauderdale area where BSO incorporates.
Yeah, most certainly. You know, I kind of just put it in context for the viewers who probably aren't paying attention to some of the operational stuff. You know, we've had a multitude of different shootings over the last, year in Pompano Beach, some lingering over in the Deerfield, but mostly in Pompano Beach area. We had cases where drive-by shootings occurred, kids being shot and killed. We had an innocent young lady sitting in the car just trying to do groceries. Some gang-related shooting take place. She gets killed in the car. And then the community starts saying, hey, look, this has to change. Sheriff, what can you do? We know you're working your butt off, but we just can't tolerate this. Can you turn up the heat a little bit, so to speak? And I wanted to do it. We talked about this before. You know, when we have violent crimes occurring, typically in Black and brown communities, there's this push to just over police the community and all the good people suffer. And I lived through that as a kid. I've seen it many times as a police officer. Now I'm the administrator, I'm in charge. And we weren't going to do that. We weren't going to go out and swing a katana sword and hit the whole community. Instead, I said, we're going to take a scalpel and we're going to carve out these problems one by one. And so working with the ATF, the FBI, Homeland Security, Pompano crime suppression teams, we put together a multi-week operation to just really target these individuals who are the worst of the worst. And, that's where you guys kind of come in because you were out there. We did a lot of marching. We did a lot of gun violence forums and started listening to the community. But the biggest thing is like, look, you can listen to the community all day, but what actions are you going to take, right? No one's interested in hearing me talk, so to speak. They want to hear about what performance things I'm putting in place. And so Operation Trigger Lock was exactly that. We ran that operation, guys, for about 6 weeks. We took over 130 plus hard criminals. I'm talking about the worst of the worst, your gangbangers who are allowing these crimes to bleed from Pompano to Deerfield to District 5 or unincorporated. It was all connected. So we went after them. We took them off the streets. A couple federal indictments are on the way. This was part of my goal, was to stop hitting these criminals with just state charges, but hit them with the federal charges because they stick. And you're going to do a lot more of that time. In addition, in that operation, going to the point of gun violence, we took off the street about 38 different weapons platforms. And I think you guys seen kind of the presser we sent out. These weren't your old revolvers, right? This wasn't 1955 and the six shooters. These guys were out there with extended magazines, Glocks with 30-round capacities, 200-round drums on AK-47s and AR-15s. And so now they're off the street. Now, here's a cool thing, and I'll pause and we'll take some more questions and kind of elaborate on it. The guys the men and women did such a great job at this. We didn't get into shooting. We didn't have to kill anybody in the process of making these arrests because we took our time. We did this strategically, and we executed these high-risk warrants and search warrants and arrest warrants using the best of the best. So it worked out, but we have a lot more work to do.
That's good. And I heard you mention a shooting in Fort Lauderdale where a young lady was sitting in the car. We had her mother on our podcast. Her name was Brittany Buckner. And the one that was killed is her daughter. Her name was Destiny Buckner. And let's talk a little bit about cold cases. Is there any movement on these cold cases here in Broward County? We know they were a little short on detectives to work these cases. But could you elaborate a little bit on the cold cases? And if you want to step in or
Yeah.
go a little bit further with the Destiny Buckner case, we'd appreciate that. I know her mother will.
Yeah, I'll move us forward as deep as I can take us with some of this stuff.
Yes, exactly.
When it comes to the cold cases, those are always the ones that really just dominate the community because there's this continuing conversation like, hey, Destiny was killed, but no one's going to jail, right? And that just keeps echoing across the community. And that falls on us when it comes to apprehension and arresting individuals. But it's hard to do when we don't get intel. So we've been trying to incentivize the community, increasing up to $20,000 for a tip just to get information from the community so we can follow up and go after these individuals. When it comes to overall cold cases, I think I may have brought this up when I first came in 2019. I was really disturbed at how many cold cases collectively in the agency that were just sitting in boxes, literally. I remember going downstairs and walking into our homicide unit and they showing me, if you can just imagine, it's a closet just filled with boxes and boxes stacked up as high as you can see. And I didn't see boxes. I saw people, I saw victims, I saw unsolved cases, I saw a lack of justice. And so we created a cold case unit. And they've had a lot of success. There's about 350 cold cases that were sitting in those closets that I was talking about. And by going through DNA, going through new evidence and science-based technology that we can use, we've been able to solve at least 20 plus of those cases.
Good.
That's remarkable. And they were recognized on, national accolades and things of that nature for the success we're having. But it's the current ones that what happened in the last year, what happened in the last 2 years, 3 years, that I have more of an interest in because it's still lingering. That punch, that hurt, that sorrow, that devastation, that frustration is still in the community. Not to dismiss the shootings and things we had in the 1980s, but people have moved on and forgot about those. Meanwhile, the fresh ones, people want answers. So, we're going after them. The Fort Lauderdale cases and things of that nature, of course, they have their own police department and they serve as lead investigators. But look, ultimately, every crime scene we process in this county, a lot of people don't realize that. We support every single jurisdiction. Our investigators will supplement and work with Fort Lauderdale so that it's faster for them to move outside of their jurisdiction. But from a partnership standpoint, things are moving well. It's just not moving fast enough. I don't like any homicide lingering over, 24 hours. I'm like, let's get the guy because I know what it does. When I'm at the churches, I'm marching with the community. These are people who you get to know. They're not just, family members and victims. They call you, on a first name basis. And, I've been in office for 6 years and there's cases that have not been solved yet. And it's not a matter of resources. It's just a matter of we haven't got the intelligence we need to go catch these guys.
Right. And part of the reason we do what we do here at the Adams Brothers Podcast is because our sister Angela Savage was murdered right here in Deerfield Beach, my senior year at Deerfield Beach High School, and dumped side of the road. And it was a cold case for many years, almost 30 years. And this is our passion right here, helping people, helping you all, the community, the sheriff's office, the families get answers to these unsolved cold murders, And
I just said this the other day in a post that we put out on social media about the importance of everyone taking, in terms of the community, taking an active role in safeguarding and securing this community. It's not just up to law enforcement. If you think about every respective city, it's the people that live there know more than we do. They know who the bad guys are. They know where the problem corners are. They know where the drugs is being sold. They know who's stashing the guns. We just have to be able to work with them in a manner where they feel safe to tell us these things and not feel like they're at risk. And we do a good job with that, folks. If you have some tips and you're like listening to me right now, our number one customer, our number one client that calls in is Mr. and Mrs. Anonymous. And I love them both. They give us great information. No one get exposed to any risk factors of violence in the community. And we get the information we need and we can give you a reward. And then we take these guys off the street. So if you know something, reach out to us. You can hit us at, 493-TIPS is one of our more Crime Stopper numbers. You can just call us in, drop a line, send some intel and let us follow up. And by the way, last thing I'll say, that quick plug on this. Don't worry about whether or not the intel you're providing is valid or not. No one's going to gauge you or say, you know what, we can't trust this guy. He gave us this information. It didn't lead to anything. We expect that to happen, right? But it's better to have it, let the experts look at it, because sometimes there's little small things that will blow a case up. I mean, really blow a case up. So nothing's too small for us to digest and take in.
We say that all the time on our podcast.
good.
Wayne, yes, yes. And if they don't want to call you all, they could pass the information on to us, and we'll forward it over to your detectives as well.
Yeah, and if you forward it over, I'll send you the $20,000. How's that?
That sounds good. Sounds good. Wayne, go ahead if you got your question for the sheriff.
Yes, Sheriff, in your town hall meetings and press conferences, you have touched on problems not exclusive to law enforcement and problems that law enforcement can fix. Can you touch on some of the problems in your town hall meetings and in your press conferences that you touched on that is beyond BSO control and that some of our cities and counties can help fix, like touch on, like,
Absolutely.
education?
No, Wayne, absolutely. And I know you guys pay attention to everything I'm at, but we got to get this out to the community. This is important. You hit it right out the park with stating, look, these problems are not just law enforcement oriented, right? A lot of these problems that we're dealing with when it comes to crime patterns, trends, active violence has a social nexus of inequality, lack of job opportunities, environmental factors where certain communities aren't invested in, beautifications aren't taking place in these environments. And so you create certain pockets of which has a greater propensity towards violence and criminal activity happening, right? There's no mystery. If you look at, we're talking about Pompano, how East Pompano has reduced violent crimes almost next to nothing for the most part, compared to what's happening in West Pompano. So let's break that up geographically, okay? A lot of investment, money's gone into East Pompano, restaurants, condos, high rises, all these things that are flourishing in that part of the community. But when we look at West Pompano and a certain segments there, you don't have the same type of investments taking place. And what's happening is the Black and brown communities that are dominating those environments are suffering from crime trends that are driven by quality of life issues. Look, I know that from the academia world. I know it as an officer, but I know it from growing up and surviving it. I've seen this in Philly, and it was the same thing growing up in North Philly. There was no investments in the community. The drug dealers were the heroes to the young kids because they had all the gold and the flashy cars, and education was dismissed. Community-based projects was dismissed. And before you know it, all the youth were getting sucked up in those environments and getting gunned down, killed in a community, and leaving the rest of the community to try to clean it up. So what I've challenged the city commission with, through Mayor Rex and Beverly and the whole crew out there, was what are you guys doing? All right, we just launched the largest law enforcement sweeping operation in the history of Pompano. We've proven success, 132 plus arrests, 38 guns, whatever. That's law enforcement. But if they don't start changing and investing in those areas the way I talked about, if they don't start holding businesses accountable, some of these kind of slumlord grocery stores and businesses that allow for lingering and drug dealing to take place, because most of them, guys, don't even live in Broward County. They purchase these properties, they're investment properties. They may be in New York, San Diego, wherever. So yeah, they're generating money, but they're not dodging bullets like we are. They're not seeing these drug dealers pick up and beat these kids. They're not seeing that, right? So the only way you can hold them accountable is using code enforcement, nuisance abatement, shut them down, penalize them, and make them a part of this community, right? You can't just come into Broward County and suck up all our money and then not care about the consequences of what's happening in the social environment. So that's my challenge to them. Same thing with the county commission. There's a lot of beautification efforts and things that are going on, but we need to start investing in things like mental health facilities, because that's also an issue we have in Pompano. I just finished my doctorate, and part of my dissertation was looking at the issues of mental health areas and how much crisis intervention training is helping prevent some of these arrests from happening. And guys, again, Pompano happened to be on that upper echelon. There was in the last 6 years of my study, there was 35,556 calls for mental health services in Broward County. 8,130 plus of them were in Pompano, and Pompano led that. So when you start looking at the numbers behind some of this stuff, you're like, okay, it's not all law enforcement. It's going to take a whole village. County commissioners and city management, city elected officials have to step up to the plate. They cannot keep pointing a finger and saying, what are you guys doing in law enforcement? Because we are getting the job done on that side.
Do you have a mental health unit professional that can respond to a person that's in having a mental health crisis rather than to send officers with guns out to deal with these individuals?
Yeah, most certainly. We started about 2 years ago. I launched something called a co-responder program in Pompano Beach, and we're going to expand that throughout the county. And what that co-responder looked like, that team is a combination of both law enforcement officers, mental health practitioners, clinicians, et cetera. We'll get out to the scene, officers' primary concern, scene security, stabilization, and then we pass it off to the experts, and we're gone. We're not staying in those environments which create conflict, right? Oftentimes, we've seen a shooting down in Miami just recently. We use one of those as an example. Mental health crisis, guy on his patio, trying to talk him down. If you notice in that environment, it looked like 6 to 7 officers there. And then eventually, behavioral patterns, actions, he gets tased, he gets shot. Well, imagine a different scenario where officers get on scene, they de-escalate the violence component and turn it over to the mental health practitioners. Now you don't have any guns on the scene. Now you don't have the potential for use of force. We will only remain on those scenes if it's a true hazard and the person is above and beyond the ability of a mental health practitioner being able to calm them down and control the environment. So we had a lot of success with that. In our real-time crime center and our threat management division, I included behavioral licensed therapists in that. So when we get these threat calls about kids wanting to shoot up the schools, not all of them deserve to go to jail. Not all of them can go to jail, but all of them who are indicating those type of signs of mental instability can get the treatment that they need before they turn into a school shooter. So I'm trying to change the culture, man. We've made a lot of success, but I'm telling you that the next key things we need in this county, one is a communication center. That's a whole nother issue. And then we need a mental health facility here.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple questions in our chat. One question from Daryl Barton said, "What are you doing to recruit more Black officers on the road?"
Well, I'll tell you, I'm happy with what we've been able to do over the last 6 years, right? This was an issue when I first walked in. 2 things I heard was, one, we didn't have enough officers, which was true to a degree. We had about 240 vacancies at the law enforcement position because the previous administrations and stuff just did not look at that big picture. So we had to fill those vacancies. And I'll tell you, if you took Broward County social construct and population and BSO's employment, and we mirror each other, right? We have a high degree of African-American employees out here, high-ranking officials, and into the local law enforcement arena. You have to be balanced. If you're not going to be reflective of the community you serve, that in itself can be a problem. Because in like Pompano, for example, going back into West Pompano, that's a predominantly Black community. And not to say that white officers can't do that job, but there's a socialization aspect that Black people will be more receptive to seeing Black officers.
Yes, absolutely.
Hispanic officers, Hispanic community is more inclined to engage and be comfortable with Hispanic. So we all know this exists. The problem is too many administrators wouldn't accept that. They want to play this game as if there's no discriminatory issues or race issues with law enforcement. That's nonsense, right?
Yes, it is.
It's been going on for hundreds of years in this country. And until we as administrators, whoever they are, chiefs, sheriffs, start accepting that and changing it and not selecting people. This is another important part for the young man, I forget his name you said, that asked this question. And it's not just
Barton.
It's not just about putting Black people out as officers in the field. It's about putting the right people, right? Because the last thing I want is some abusive Black officer who's beating on Black people, white people, and everything else. So if they're not a good, sound, moral character to do this job and they're Black, they're not getting hired. They have to be the right people. And then the greater picture behind that too is the consequences of having a Black officer in a Black community and he or she not doing their job effectively or abusively. It just messes everything up in this structure of where, this uniform used to be used to suppress Black folks and keep us in slavery. Black codes, Jim Crow, I can go through the whole history behind this uniform. Well, if you change that into modern society where we're at now, we can't retroactively go back and start doing bad stuff and embarrass ourselves, I guess is what I'm getting to. If we're going to work that hard for these opportunities, we got to be better and do better than most.
Absolutely. And then we have one other question in the comment. It says, please ask Sheriff Tony why BSO like clockwork every year asking municipalities that they serve for a 6 to 8% budget increase, while almost never showing where they are saving the municipalities
That's a good
Yeah,
question.
money, saving the
First-
municipalities money.
I understood it. The first part I would say that's not accurate. This 6 to 8%. If you look at our contract agreements with our local cities, it's below 6%. And I will tell you this, that contract, that the template that we've used over the last 30 plus years is antiquated, outdated, and not sustainable. On average, law enforcement services for municipal cities or sheriff's offices cover about 60% of the budget. You can go pull up Fort Lauderdale or any other LAPD large cities. They consume a lot. What happened here almost 30 years ago, predecessors before me signed and locked us into these contracts where it's 3 to 5% maximum. Well, let's think about that, guys, right? What was going on in 1993? What was the economy like? What was the population like? This county has just grown tremendously between population environment, all the businesses that exist out here. The economy has changed, cost of living has increased. So it's killing us right now because my people can't afford to live here. We have officers right now. I have almost 200 vacancies in the Department of Detention, right? That's almost 20% of the workforce. 1,000 deputies work inside the jails, and we're hitting 200 very, very quick. We're at about 180, but it's going to be 200 soon. Why is that? This is the discussion I had just a few days, yesterday or the day before yesterday with the county commission. We're underpaying every single employee in this agency. So no one's willing to stay here because they can't live here. And then they can go to counties in North Palm Beach where they can make $18,000 more starting and deal with less inmate population, less calls for services. So yeah, they're gone. So if we want to retain, and this isn't just a BSO thing to the person in the audience, this is impacting all of Broward County. Think about this really quick, folks. If all the first responders in Broward County, beyond BSO, Fort Lauderdale, Coconut Creek, there was an article the other day in Wilton Manors, barely able to survive right now, in many other cities. If all the officers are going up north to Palm Beach County and many others, we're losing the quality of our first responders here. We put them through training, we give them the best training, we give them the best equipment, and then they leave and take that skill set to a community that they really don't even want to be in, but they can't afford to be here. So we have to have competitive salaries so that we can keep these folks. I'm telling you, we're going to be in a very, very problematic environment within the next 5 to 6 years.
Yes, and you're right. You know, we have to pay these employees in order to keep them here.
Keep good people here.
We won't have quality deputies on the road or inside the jail. So that's
thank you
very
for bringing
important.
up that the Q word, because that's another big one I talked to my command staff about. Right, what's going to happen if this pattern continues to take place? We're going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel to bring in deputies here, and I don't want the lowest quality candidate becoming a deputy, because they're going to be the ones that get in trouble in internal affairs, the one that gets in the excessive force, the one that starts violating the laws, the one this is the last position, in my opinion, on planet Earth where we can say we'll take the guy at the bottom of the barrel. We'll take him. So he may not have the education. Yeah, he's a little dirty. Yeah, he's not the top guy, but he's all we can get. Before I do that, I'll be done. I'm not going to take the bottom of the barrel and put that out in this community and then impact all this hard work we've done, because it will.
Right. Okay, we know we're on a time frame here. Before we let you go, Sheriff Dr. Gregory Tony, put some emphasis on that doctor there. You to our knowledge, you have one opponent that's running against you. Look into the camera and tell everyone why they should reelect you as sheriff here in Broward County.
For the next 4 years.
For the next 4 years.
Yeah, listen, it's quite simple. I've gutted this agency from its political world it used to be in and focus on public safety. I'm in year 6, folks, not year 1, not year 2, not year 3. And we've had tremendous success here, from the state-of-the-art programming we've done at the Real-Time Crime Center, our training center. I talked about the cold case unit. I can go on and on about the different successes we've had here. But ultimately, it's what you say. We've ran independent polling and let the community gauge what they thought about this agency and how well we're performing. 92% of this community unprecedentedly said they feel safe with BSO's administration and the services that we're providing. 96% said that they were satisfied with fire rescue, with all the changes we've made there when I created this whole blood program, where now our ear rescue can provide whole blood. And we have a 73% survivability that we're introducing in this community now. 90% of the community had rated satisfaction rates for communications after the modifications I made. We had issues with recruitment there. I filled 90 vacancies. Communications is now answering their calls within all the national thresholds, and it goes on and on and on. But ultimately, here's a question I will pose to the community. What do you want? Do you want to roll the dice and risk putting some political person in here who's going to give you promises? Or do you want to keep the sustainability of what's happening here, how you feel collectively as a community, the benefits and things that we've gained with a proven track record, right? This nothing speculated here. Everything I've stated, every number I blast, everything that we've done, you can pull, and it's proof of concept, right? The one thing I've seen in my 6 years experience now, and you've seen it more than me because you've been actively involved in this stuff. Everyone comes in with this great sales pitch. I'm going to change this. BSO's broken and I got to do that. Well, you guess what? We are winning on every national record, every national platform. And that's because of the command staff that we have, the leadership that I've provided, and we're not going to take our foot off the pedal. You talked about this doctorate degree. Look, that's something I wanted to accomplish, but it's also something I thought this community deserved. We're the third largest sheriff's office in the United States, the largest public safety organization in the state of Florida. And if someone's going to be leading this up, they need to be a subject matter expert in this arena. And I'm the only one that can claim that title. Out of the 1,600 sheriffs that have served this state over the last 179 years, none of them had took the time out to build themselves up to become an expert so that the skill sets will be beneficial for the community. Not because of some acronym that goes before your name or after. It's about the gains of being a professional that's qualified, competent to do this job and do it well. So if that's what you want, I'm your guy. You'll see me on August 20th. You can vote for Sheriff Tony.
Sheriff Dr. Gregory Tony, thank you so
again.
very much for always making time for
You are our
Black
very
media.
first guest.
You are
I'll be
our very
back.
first guest on this podcast. Thank you for making time for Black media. Thank you very much. Thank you to your staff down there, Vita Coleman Wright and Carrie Card, Captain Darrell Stallings in Pompano, and up here in Deerfield Beach, Captain Adam
Cade,
Hofstein and Lieutenant
Cade.
Chauncey Cade. You got some good administrative
Hofstein.
staff here.
Yes.
Keep up the good work, and thank you
Come
again.
back. You know you're always welcome back.
Making time
Oh,
for
I'll-
Black media.
I'll be back, and thanks for giving all my guys a shout out because they do.
Yes,
work hard.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And be safe out there, sir, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Absolutely. Take care, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.